Are you a real estate investor looking to start your first flip? Are you a passive investor looking for the next opportunity? Regardless of your situation, our mission is to help everyone work towards their unique version of financial freedom. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Conduit Capital podcast. Today, for the second time, I have Tom Olson with us.
Thanks for having me on, Adam. I love being a part of this. Love telling my story. Can't wait to kind of get into that a little bit today. As you can see behind me, we're going to be playing with some backgrounds in our podcast studio here. So bear with us, guys. It's going to be good. It's going to be bad. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be everything in between.
That's right. Yeah, Tom kind of looks like he's coming to us from the future, which which I like. I kind of need to get a cooler background, I think. But before we get into our topic for today, I want to talk about what we talked about last time, which was what are your financial goals? That was our question of the day from last time. And now, if you listened last time, this time you can tune in and hear from us for what our financial goals are. I know Tom talked about it a little bit, but Tom, tell us a little bit about what your financial goals are.
Yes, so I did talk about this in the last episode, I believe, but my big financial goal is to give away $1 billion in my lifetime. I don't really know why that is. People have asked me, why are you doing this? I'm like, I just feel like it's part of the reason why I've been created and why I'm on this earth. Most of my giving kind of goes towards faith-based initiatives and missionaries around the world and things like that. But I do have the two big goals in my life, and that is to flip the city of Gary, Indiana, and help it become a place that people move to instead of away from, and to be able to give that money. And sometimes I feel like, sometimes that giving is to people like Share the Love, which is a nonprofit that brings wheelchairs to people in third world countries that would never be able to afford those. Sometimes it is actually to missionaries. Sometimes it's to help build wells in Uganda. Many different things that I kind of feel that are good causes and that people need help with. But that's it. Like that's my main big goal. And that kind of the whole one of the big reasons why I do what I do is to be able to help reach that goal. I've been tracking this literally since I was 12 years old. Didn't have that goal when I was 12 years old, but I was taught very young to track things like this. And that was, I actually have a giving sheet that I've been tracking, not because I can boast about or tell everybody all about it, but I really feel like it's important to make it happen. I'm nowhere close to that goal, folks, just so everybody knows. I don't know how I'm going to get there. But I think it's important to strive for something that's way bigger than what you can do yourself. And that's mine.
That's an amazing goal, and I can't wait to be around for the day when you hit that $1 billion because I know you won't be the guy screaming it from the rooftops, but I know the people who work for you and the people that you know and the people that know that you have that goal will be really happy to hear when that's achieved. And I know you'll do it too.
I hope so. So Adam, how about you? What's your financial goals?
So my financial goals are twofold. I guess a financial goal tied in with my goal in general individually would be to use all of the talents and all of the skills that God gave me to help others. So Tom likes talking about this parable, but I've heard the parable before as well, the parable about the talents and the master giving his talents to his servants, and the various things that the servants did with those talents or didn't do with those talents. And that resonated with me, and I feel like I was blessed with certain skills, and when I die someday, I want to be in front of God and say, hey, I used everything you gave me to glorify you. So I'd say that's one main one, maybe not so financial, but I guess another financial one would be to continue my family's legacy. So I was very fortunate growing up to have a very close-knit family, and their legacy was built on the shoulders of the generations before them. And I want to continue that trend so that generations that I'll never have the pleasure to meet will be able to benefit from things set up from generations previously before them.
That's awesome. I do love it when people have family goals and they want to create a legacy. They want to live on a legacy. They want to live their legacy today during this lifetime, but also try to instill those things into future generations, not just monetarily, but also in just the way you live your life and how you treat people. And Adam's, I'm super proud of Adam for that. That's awesome. One thing I will say about having goals, though, I think it's very, very important to have goals. I think not just having goals in your mind and not just theoretical goals and things, but actually written down goals, written down reasons, written down plans to make those things happen. And if you don't have those things written down, I want to encourage you today. We've asked you to kind of post if you're looking at this on social media, or if you get an email, let us know what your financial goals are. What we want to do at Conduit Capital is really help everybody reach financial freedom, or whatever that means for you. So we thought that it would be a really good first question for everybody out there. At the end of this episode, and at the end of every episode, we're going to be asking you a question, and we'd love for you to be able to put those answers at the bottom here in the comment sections, and let us know what the answers are to those. We will have another question at the end of today's episode, right, Adam?
That's right. And I'm really looking forward to that. And there is no shame if you missed answering the question from the last episode. It's never too late to go back and do that. There probably won't be any public humiliation if you missed it and you go back and correct it. But we will know who that is and who's doing that. So just keep that in mind.
But we may have public shame if you don't put an answer in.
That's true too. Yeah. We'll know if you.
We will know that you watched it and you didn't put an answer in.
If you actively decide not to, we'll know. We'll know. You may
we
think
have
it's
AI
a private
bots
thought
that are
and it's
watching
not.
you.
We will know. Oh, jeez. So today's episode and why we're here today is to learn more about Tom's origin story, his humble beginnings. So I'm really just going to let you run with it, Tom, and because I want to hear for myself even more.
Awesome. And I think it's important to kind of understand where people come from. I have talked to a lot of different people, and it's amazing to me how many people really do believe and really think that there's no way that anybody can ever get anywhere unless they grew up with money, or unless they were given some kind of inheritance, or unless, there's really, it's actually kind of sad to me how many people really believe that. And I can just tell you, it's just not the truth. And most of the successful friends that I know did not grow up in that way, did not grow up in, and honestly, a lot of them didn't grow up in homes like Adam talked about with his own home, where they really are a close-knit family. I know his family very, very well. And a lot of people didn't grow up like that way. A lot of people have come from broken homes. They come from trailer parks. They come from very poor beginnings. And that really is kind of where, my story began. I did not, come up in money. I've never been given an inheritance. I don't even think I've ever been given anything more than maybe the most I can ever remember even getting for one of my birthdays is like a $20 bill. Like, I don't remember being given anything. I've been given lots of opportunities. I do believe that God's blessed me in my life and my business and my family. And I'm very grateful for all of that. But I'm going to start my story super far back, way back before Mr. Adam was even born, in the summer of 1985. That sounds like a song, Adam. Summer of 1985. Okay, sorry.
In another life, you would
we will be doing
definitely
karaoke at the free for all event this year, everybody. But anyways, so in August 20th, 1985, my family moved to Northwest Indiana from a town called Jamestown, New York, which is right in between Buffalo and Erie, Pennsylvania. So right in that snow belt. It's like the snow belt of the snow belt. I can still remember waking up, Adam, when there was like 3 or 4 feet of snow. And this was not like a once in a lifetime occurrence, guys. This is like a every year, a time occurrence that will happen. If you like the snowmobile, I'm telling you, this is the place to go. Jamestown, New York, everybody. But anyways, so I still remember that move. And my dad came out here, and he believed that he was supposed to go to Bible college. And so he went to college and worked a full-time job and put us in the Christian school here in Northwest Indiana. And it wasn't long before we realized that, or I shouldn't say me, I was only 8 years old. my parents realized that my dad's one income wasn't going to do it. I can still remember he was making $300 a month, and I still remember our rent back then was only $300 a month. Uh, and to put us through Christian school, go to college, all that stuff wasn't going to work. So me and my mom and my three brothers started a paper route. And I can still remember my mom waking us up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We'd go out and roll those papers, deliver about 450 papers. And we did that for about 3 or 4 years. And that got us into Christian school for that first year, and we were fine. And then my parents decided to teach us at home. I know a lot of people are really big on homeschool, and I think it probably has some benefits. I did not have a very good time with it, and I did not enjoy it myself personally. But I was homeschooled from 4th to 6th grade, and then in 7th grade, I went back to junior high at the Christian school, and I was happy to go back to school. I loved sports. Sports was one of those things that, man, if I could play baseball or basketball or soccer, I was all about. I can still remember I remember hearing the story about Larry Bird, where when he was in high school, he wouldn't go in. He wouldn't come in until he had shot and made 100 free throws. And I was like, man, that's a good goal. So my goal, though, instead of making 100 free throws, I still remember my junior high coach coming to me and saying, hey, you're 3 for your first 21 free throws. He's like, we need to be better. This is something that we need to be better at. So I went home and I started practicing free throws. I got my own rhythm, and my rhythm matched Michael Jordan's, just so everybody knows, because I think Michael Jordan is the best basketball player who's ever lived, and nobody's going to be able to change my mind. So don't, you Kobe fans out there, don't even think about it. LeBron, sorry, not even the same league. Michael Jordan is the man and will always be. So anyways, I remember he used to have this, like, he would do 3, he'd like dribble the ball 3 times, he'd spin it back 3 times, and he was kind of like on that 7th, and I was counted to 7, and I'm like, this is God's perfect number, right? 7. So it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, swish. So I wouldn't go in until I could make 10 in a row. And from then on forward, like, I really raised my percentage, worked hard to raise my percentage. And by the end of the year, I think I was like 50% by starting so bad. As you can see, I played down low. I was actually the tallest kid in my class up until about 7th and 8th grade. And then everybody started passing me. I'm not sure what happened there. But I played center in junior high and didn't play center in high school. I'll tell you that. But anyways, it was a good time in my life. But, I remember going to high school, and my parents then decided that, hey, we can't afford this anymore. And my brothers went to public school, and I wanted to stay in the Christian school. This is where my friends were. This is where my basketball team was. This is where kids that I've kind of grown up with now were. And so I decided to get a job and have a paper out, and I paid my own way through high school at that Christian school. And to me, like, I'm just like, man, if this is what I want to do, it doesn't matter what age you are. You can get whatever you want to get if you're willing to do whatever it takes to get there. And got to learn a lot of good, valuable lessons, in my opinion, of working hard when I was a super young man. And so I helped with that. I still remember my 8th grade history teacher pointing me out at lunchtime, and I thought I was in trouble. He pointed at me and he said, come here. And I'm like, oh boy, what did I do now? This is a big guy. I used to play football. And he asked me if I wanted to work on Saturday of that week. And I was like, yes. Like, I was just wanting to find a job. I was wanting to work. And so this guy owned a construction business, and he was building a new home. And apparently they had done something wrong on their plans when they had built the house originally. And he was a new builder. He had a big, pretty large painting company. I think he had like 30 or 40 painters that had worked for him. But he was starting to build homes. And in the basement, part of the basement was supposed to be a not as deep of a hole. It was supposed to kind of be like a crawl space area. And the whole house was built and framed and everything. And when they realized this, and I guess the city had come and said, hey, this isn't supposed to be this way. So he had to fill in this section, right? So after the house was built, not completely built, it was framed, everything wasn't completely done. But me and 3 guys spent all day. with wheelbarrows and shovels and 5-gallon buckets, hauling them down to the basement and filling in this big, I don't know, 15 by 15 hole about 3 foot deep, filled with rock. So then later they could come in and pour cement in. And I still remember working 12 hours that day thinking, man, we're making $4.50 an hour. This is, I mean, I was pumped. It was great. And really one thing led to another. He was happy with our work there. I ended up working for him all the way through high school. I still remember, Adam, going to basketball practice and going to basketball practice until from about, I think basketball practice started at 3:30, probably ended at 5:30, and then going to work and not getting home until 11, 12 o'clock at night, many times doing homework. And then kind of just, I mean, that was my life. I do remember work kind of slowed down during basketball season. So that was good. So we normally would work up until about November 1st and then pick it up again in about April. Even the kids. And then during the summer, I remember working 50, 60 hours a week during the summers and making about $3,000 to $4,000 a year as a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid trying to just, work hard, put my way through school, and kind of learned, work ethic, what it means to hurt, what it means to work all day, and really kind of keep pressing on when you don't want to. Also got to learn a lot of skills. Got to learn a lot of skills in construction, and really got to to me, I feel like I'm blessed that I was given that opportunity to work and learn those skills at a super young age. So, kind of fast forward a little bit to I graduated high school in '95, got married. Super fast, super young. My wife was 19 and I was 20. Did go to college for a short period of time, believe it or not. I decided personally at a very young age, this is not for me. And people ask me all the time, why was college? How did you figure this? Now I feel like kids are kind of starting to kind of turn over on college right now. College is starting to get not as popular as it used to be. You've got the Grant Cardones of the world. You've got these people out there screaming how bad college is. And I still don't believe college is bad for everybody. I think if you're highly specialized, there's certain things certain skills and certain licenses or certain things you need to learn, I think college can be very important for people. If you're going to be a dentist, you got to go to college, right? If you're going to be a doctor, you got to go to college. An accountant, attorney, many of those things, an engineer, you got to go to college. But I think the general kid that just is going to be a business owner, I don't really think they need it. Is there something they think they can learn? Absolutely. But for the most part, I decided at a super young age, and this was my determining factor, Adam. My determining factor was I don't want to be like any of these teachers, and I don't want to be like any of the people that are going to college. I just thought they were very immature. And I'm just like, I don't want to be around this anymore. So that's kind of why I quit college, but started my first side business when I was 19 years old, right before I got married. And then me and my wife got married, and I have never rented a home. There's not very many people I know that know that, but I bought my first house about 3 weeks before I got married. So I never really rented a home. Now I will tell you, my parents did have a rule, and I think this is actually a good rule. Adam may or may not think this is a good rule. I'm not sure. But my parents had a rule that when I turned 18 years old, if I was not in college, I had to pay them $200 a month to be in their home. And so that's the only rent that I've ever paid as a person. So I bought my first house when I was, like I said, 19 years old, got married when I was 20, and now have been married for 25 plus years to my beautiful, wonderful wife, Becky Olson. We have 3 beautiful children, one that we had a miscarriage, so we say that he's in heaven. Don't know if it was he or she, but definitely count that as one of our kids as well. So during that period of time, like I said, I started my side business. And I can still remember going to work all day and working 50, 60 hours a week for a boss, and for working for somebody as an employee, and then kind of starting my own self-employment, doing side jobs and hiring some of my friends to help me on these side jobs. And I got to learn a lot when I was really young about, I can still remember in 1997 reading the tax code book. And the tax code book was about this thick. And if you're listening to this on podcast, it was only about 4 inches thick. Okay. And I'm not a reader like that normally, but I said, you know what? This is something I need to learn. My brother-in-law was in school to be an accountant. And I'm like, I want to know what the tax code is, what the tax code says. I believe that that's been a huge help to me over the years to kind of understand that. I do remember my brother-in-law, Josh, who's now my accountant, tell me many, many years ago, this hasn't been recently, but he's like, Tom, I don't know anybody who makes as much money as you do, that pays as little taxes as you do. And this was before I learned about how all the stuff that I do. So I think having that knowledge of just reading a tax book, you can learn a lot by reading. You don't need to go to college. You can learn just as much by reading sometimes as you can to go to college. But anyways, so during that period of time, I had a full-time job, started a side business, and then fast forward to 2006. So 2006 is kind of like a very pivotal point in my life. Most of the people talk about the economy crash of 2008, and they talk about Lehman Brothers, and they talk about the banking crisis, and they talk about stock market crash, and none of that stuff really affected me. I got my business was upside down. My whole life literally got turned upside down in 2006. And when new construction stopped, and honestly, I think it had to do with the difference in how we did banking back then versus how they do banking now. But they really tightened up on everything, on all the lending stuff in 2006, even though it didn't really fail until 2008. And I can still remember new construction permits in 1 month in one county going from 500 to 50. In 1 month. I mean, this didn't happen over like a period of 6 or 8, 9, 10 months. This was like instantly, overnight. And within 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months of that period of time, we went from having 50, 60 hours worth of work a week to like, okay, maybe you have a job, maybe we don't this week. And so it was a rough time in my life. I went from, making 6 figures to kind of literally 20 grand a year. I mean, it was like very minimal amount of money. I still remember seeing that W-2 at the end of the year and thinking, man, the year prior, I made so much more money than I made this year. And me and my wife had to make a decision. What are we going to do? So we made a lot of decisions very quickly. And I think that's something that people do need to pay attention to. When crisis happens, it's not time to bury your head in the sand. It's not time to just kind of, let things fall. It's time to face them, face those fears, and make a decision. And I think sometimes it's way more important to make those decisions than it is to like either make a right or wrong decision. I just think it's more important to actually be decisive about what you're doing. And I can tell you that we were at this point in time, and I mean, time would only tell if it was a good decision or a bad decision, but I made some very quick decisions. First of all, on our housing situation, I made the decision we had just bought a nice new home in Crown Point, Indiana, which if you were from Northwest Indiana, you would know that's probably one of the nicest cities, the places where people are moving to in Northwest Indiana. Crown Point, Cherville, Valparaiso. Those are probably the main 3 that I would say that people say, if I want to live in these places. Yes, there's some other, Highland and St. John's and Dyers and other places that, yes, people want to live in, but I'm just saying like those are the A-class neighborhoods. That's where everybody wanted to move to. So we had just moved there. We had just had our first daughter, and we decided, hey, it wasn't quite a dream home. I wouldn't say it was a dream home, but it was a nice home. It was the nicest home we'd ever had. This is actually our second home that me and my wife had purchased. But we made the decision to rent that house out. And I can still remember making $500 to $600 a month on that rental. And then we went out and paid cash for a property. We actually ended up paying $19,000 cash for the property, believe it or not, in Gary, Indiana. And then I remember putting in about $16,000 of my own money to refinish some floors, to put in a new kitchen, to do things like that. And I did all the work myself on all of this. So I was into this house about $45,000. And didn't owe anything on it. And basically the way I looked at it is like, everything can go to pot, but they can't take this house away from me unless I don't pay my taxes. And I think at the time the taxes were like $900 a year on it. So I was like, okay, I can make this happen. On top of that, I also put borders in my basement. So this house was a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house, about 2,700 square feet. And I built these bedrooms out in the basement, and there was a bathroom down there. And, I still remember having 3 boarders that lived in my basement and basically paid for all of the expenses that I had on my whole house. So I was kind of living kind of scot-free.
Yeah,
At
house
the time,
hacking before it was cool.
it was literally house hacking before house hacking was house hacking, right? Who knew no, I'm
Trendsetter.
sure there was house hacking before then. But anyway, so I had to make that decision from that standpoint. And from the other standpoint, I was not going to sit home and do nothing. I was going to figure out how to keep going, how to put food on the table. I'm the breadwinner. My wife also, my wife at the time she just had a child, so she wasn't working. And that it wasn't the plan for her to work right then. Later, she did work more, and she's worked throughout most of our married lives. But at this point in time, we thought it was important for her to stay home with our first child for a little while. And I started making some phone calls, Adam. I was just like, man, I got to find some work. So I only remember making 3 phone calls. I made 3 phone calls. And one of those first 3 people that I talked to said, hey, I don't have any work for you, but I know another guy who does. So I called up this guy and I said, hey, I just talked to this other guy over here. And he said that you might have some work for me. And so is there anything I can do to help you? And I told him a little bit about who I am and what I did. And he's like, I'm glad you called. I've been looking for somebody to get this project done for me. So I was like, well, great. He's like, so I asked him when we could meet, and we set the time to go meet. So I show up about 10, 15 minutes early, and I was there and I'm waiting for him. And I can still remember he was late. And so I'm like calling him. I'm like, you did say to meet here at this time, right? And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, you're already there. He's like, I'm down the street. So I was like, so to me, I was like, okay, well, whatever. So he meets me there. He walks me through the property. He tells me all the stuff he wants me to do. So I stand there with my pen and paper and my like invoice or proposal sheet that I got at Office Depot, like I had always done for the last 13 years working my side business, and wrote up a little short mini scope of work and how much I was going to charge for him and how much he needed to give me up front. And or I think at this job, I just told me he could just pay me all at the end because it wasn't a very big job. And so he's like, okay, this sounds good. He's like, when can you start? So I said, I can start next Monday. And he's like, okay, when can you finish? I think it was about 2 weeks after that. And I said, okay, I'll be done by this Saturday. And he was like, okay, let's make it happen. So we shook on it. He signed the proposal, started when I told him I was going to start, and ended when I told him it was going to end. And at the end of the job, when we're kind of meeting to go over the project and to make sure he was happy with everything, he's like, you know what, Tom, I'm really happy with your work. But I've got to tell you, you are the first person to ever call me asking for work. Normally, I'm the one that's got to go out and call everybody else and try to wrangle up contractors and find somebody to come work on my project. You're the first person to call me and ask for work. Number 2, you're the first person to actually show up on time. He's like, I could have been here on time, but I was down the street and I didn't show up on time because none of my contractors ever do show up on time. So he's like, you're the first person to show up on time. You're the first person to actually write up a contract for me right here on the spot and say, hey, I can get this done for you. You're the first person to start on time and end on time. And you're the first person to ever be on budget, not come to me later and say, I got all these extra things that you got to do. So he's like, you know what, Tom, I want you to now run all of my crews. I did not know this, but he was running 3 full rehabs at a time for investors. That's what he was doing. And I thought to myself, oh, wow, this is a kind of a new thing. I mean, to me, I just thought that you were supposed to go out and look for work. I thought you were supposed to pick up your phone when somebody called. I thought you were supposed to just, give somebody a proposal if they wanted something done. I thought you were supposed to start on time. I thought you were supposed to end on time and do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. And so it was a big shock to me that this was not normal, in life. And I mean, it's interesting now, Adam, because now I know better. Now I've hired hundreds of contractors. We've done almost 1,000 rehabs. from my business over the years. And I can tell you, most contractors don't pick up the phone. Most contractors don't start on time, end on budget. They always have some kind of an excuse why they can't get something done. But that was not the case for me at that time. So fast forward about 6 months from there, I am now managing 3 rehabs a month for this guy. And we did about 30 rehabs in that first year. And I became partners with him. I honestly, I can't even tell you the conversation. I don't remember. All I remember is I was working my butt off. I forgot to tell you about this because me and my wife also went back to getting a paper route, back to humble beginnings. So me and my wife went back to getting a paper route. So I was working a full-time, I was working for my other boss when I still could, when there was still work kind of available. I went and got a paper out. Me and my wife both got paper outs, and I was doing all of this for this other guy for about 6 months. And then I think we quit the paper out in about 3 to 6 months. I don't remember. I wasn't getting a lot of sleep during that period of time because when I was working, it was like 16 to 18 hours a day. So one thing led to another. With this guy, I became partners with him very shortly. Because I was running everything anyways. He was making money wholesaling houses to somebody, which I didn't know that when I started, that he was basically wholesaling houses to people and we were rehabbing them for him. So it really did turn out great. I had no idea kind of the whole realm of the investment world at the time, but got to learn it really quickly thereafter. So pretty quickly I became partners. And then in 6 months after we became partners, my guy calls me up, my boss at the time, or my partner, I should say, and says, Tom, I'm leaving. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're leaving? He's like, yep, I'm moving to Alabama. I'm like, who in the world would move to, no, I'm sorry. It was not Alabama. It was Mississippi. He's like, I'm moving to Mississippi. I'm like, what is in Mississippi? Seriously, why would you want to move? He's like, well, that's where my dad's from. He's like, I got in a fight with this other guy that I'm working with, wholesaling houses, and just do whatever you want with the business. Didn't hear from him again. That was the last time I heard from him. And I'm telling you, my thought at the time was, man, I just went through this. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to put food on the table? This is not fair. This is not right. And I thought to myself, man, I went from making 100 grand to 20 grand. Right. And then I kind of built this thing back up and worked hard to do it. And now what in the world am I going to do? So I went home, prayed about it, thought about it, and kind of came back with, you know what? I can make this work. This is my plan. So my plan was, we were working for 3 investors. That's all we were doing work for. So we were 3 investors that we were doing work for. And my plan was, okay, I'm just going to shift everything to my business. Now, there was a problem. I didn't know how they were going to get houses because I had nothing to do with that part of that business. And I had nothing to do with that piece. So I said, you know what? I'm going to call these investors and I'm going to make a proposal. And my proposal to them is going to be this. I am going to help you find the house. I'm going to help you get utilities turned on. I'll help you get insurance. I'm going to help you find the best realtor in Northwest Indiana. And they're going to tell me how much this house is worth when we go walk through it. And at the back end, they're going to help you list the property and they're going to sell the property and you're going to make a bunch of money. How does that sound? You know what, Adam? I was so stupid at the time. I did not realize that nobody that I had ever known, and I still think since then, I've never met anybody, has ever came up with that idea as a contractor. No. And these people, they loved it. They were like putty in my hands. I had no idea how much value I was bringing to that whole deal. The only thing I got out of the whole thing, Adam, was I got to be the contractor. That was my carrot that I gave for myself, was that I got to be the contractor. So we ended up rehabbing about 100 homes for these guys over the next couple of years. And got to learn a lot. I got to learn about how to acquire at the right price, how to figure out what all your costs are going to be, how to create a scope of work, how to manage that project, and then at the end, how to be successful and how to make money with those deals. Out of the 100 deals that we did, we only lost money on 1 deal. So out of the 100 deals that we did for those investors, we lost money on 1 deal. And the average profit was $28,000 for those guys. And this was back in 2008, 2009, 2010. wasn't supposed to be good, folks. It's interesting because everybody now is like kind of worried about doing deals in the current economy. And I'm like, man, like I know this kind of economy way better than I know, when it's going straight up. And to me, it kind of excites me because I feel like a lot of the people that don't know what they're doing are gone. They've already left. They have already left. And I kind of feel like you'll kind of see who the experienced people are, people that stick it out.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I kind of like less competition. It is kind of one of those things I look for when I'm starting a business or when I'm thinking about, I don't like to swim in the waters where everybody else is swimming in it. I'd much rather just take the waters where there's maybe not as many fish, but there's just less fishermen. There's less people out there, fishing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of that's a lot of my story. I went from there to I kept my construction business up and running, but I also then became partners with another gentleman, and we wholesaled about 1,500 homes between 2009 and about 2015, 16 ish. And got to learn about the acquisitions there, got to learn about raising money. And I do believe that I really have been blessed with the opportunities and the network and really, good people throughout that. And from there to about 2015, 2016, we decided to start our own thing, completely autonomous. Right now, I don't have any partners other than my wife on any of our 9 businesses. I am open to the idea, and I am kind of moving maybe back in that direction of having partners for bigger things. I kind of feel like if I ever want to reach that big goal, I'm going to have some bigger size, goals and some partners to be able to help me reach those financial goals that we talked about at the beginning. So through that, started our own business with Olson Group Network and with Olson Construction Management Company and Olson Property Services, the property management company, Good Success, which we had a mastermind for many years. And now we just have a free event each year, a free investor phone call each month, and a meetup group that we do. I also do some consulting, build business operating systems for individuals, and just do mentoring and coaching and things with people if they want it. I don't really push that part of the business much, but it is something I enjoy to do. And I do love helping a lot of other people do get what they want. Kind of all of our businesses are really kind of created to help the investor. And really the way I look at that is, I'm not sure if it was Zig Ziglar or Jim Rohn that said it, but he said, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll eventually get what you want. And that's kind of why all of our businesses are created. We do serve about 300 investors currently already with the different companies that we have. And that kind of led us to Conduit Capital, which started about 3 years ago. And super proud of Adam for helping me with that. I kind of was looking for somebody I had been wanting to start a hard money lending company for about 2 years and kind of was dabbling in it and do it myself. And I was using Heather, our CFO, to kind of help do some deals. And one thing led to another. And Adam came to me and said, "Hey, man, I'll come work for you for free if you'll just help me learn your business." And I was like, "Great. I'm not going to leave that offer on the table." Yes, sold. Adam has been working for us now for about 3 years, and I'm super, super proud of Adam. He's worked hard to build his knowledge and to kind of understand the operations of a lending business. And we started a fund, and he's helped a lot with that. And now he's kind of on the lender side, and on the investor side, and on the borrower side, and kind of running things from that. And that is kind of the story all the way back from being 12 years old, learning how to work hard, learning how to pick up the phone. I do think that there's some key things in that story. The first thing I believe is to work hard. We all need to work hard. I think the people that have this dream of I want to do real estate so I can work less. I want to do this so I can. I'm like, man, like it's always going to be work. There's going to be work somewhere. And yes, you can learn to work smarter. I'm not against working smarter, trust me. But just because you can work smarter doesn't mean you don't want to work anymore. So I think hard work is an important attribute. And I think everybody should have that mindset, whether it's working hard on the computer or networking or whatever it is, or if it's out swinging a hammer. It doesn't matter. Anywhere in between, I think work is an important thing. The next thing is to pick up the phone. I talked about that a little bit in my story, about just pick up the phone, make the phone calls. When people call you and you pick up the phone, you have to understand you are already in the top 30 percentile, maybe
Mm-hmm.
even more. You might be in the top 20 percentile. The next thing I would say is to just do what you say you're going to do. That kind of really started this whole thing. If I wouldn't have done what I said I was going to do in that one circumstance, in that one job, I could have thought, okay, I'm going to maximize how much money I'm going to make out of this one guy. I'm going to milk it. I'm going to make him pay for this and that and all these little whatever I want to try to come up with. But I wouldn't have had all the others coming down the road. The next thing I would do is kind of learn what you're bringing as value. The whole reason why we have the Active Turnkey podcast and the Active Turnkey that we do is because I learned this exact process by offering all this value to people from many years ago. So definitely some things to learn in my story and some things that I've kind of learned. But overall, what I'm trying to do with all of our businesses is to be a good steward. And that is one of our core values is stewardship. And to me, what that really means is taking what somebody else has entrusted to you and being able to give it back to them in a better shape than what it was when they gave it to you. So when people are investing money into our fund, I want to be able to give that money back to them with, more money. And the way I look at it is kind of back to why I guess I didn't mention that on this podcast, but there was a book I read and I was 19 years old called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it kind of changed the way I look at everything when it comes to finances and work, and talked about the 4 quadrants. There's 2 main things that I kind of learned from that story is you've got 4 quadrants. You've got the employee, the self-employment, the business owner, and the investor. And I think a lot of times when people talk about this book, they talk very negatively about the employee. I don't talk negatively about it at all. I think employees are great. You have to have them. And you probably had to learn somewhere to be those other things by being an employee. Plus, there's some employees that make some really good money. Have you seen how much the ball players make? Have you seen how much doctors make from places? They're all employees. Guess what, guys? These people are all employees making really good money. And if you're in that boat and you're an employee, I know some people from Microsoft that are making $500,000 a year that are some of our investors. And I think you can skip over those other 2 if you want. You can skip over small business owner. You can skip over business owner and just go right to being an investor. And I think at the end of the day, we all want to be an investor and we all should strive to be an investor if we can. And then I think and I think one of the biggest hurdles that I see, Adam, for people going from the employee to maybe self-employment to business owner to investor is one of the biggest things they don't understand is that you either have time or money. Like these are the 2 things that you have. When you're younger, you have more time. You can give of your time. People criticize people for trading time for dollars. I don't think it's that bad of a thing. Sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes it's part of the process. But I'll tell you like that you only have so much time. So eventually you want to get to the point where you're investing, and investment means it's just your money. It's nothing else. Somebody else is working and somebody else needs to make some of that money, right? So if you're an investor, you're going to make less money than if you're self-employed doing the exact same thing. So I have people all the time, Adam, that tell me, hey, if I did this myself, I could make more money. And I say, well, you're exactly right. I hope you would. And if you want to do that, go for it, do it. But if you ever want to get to the investment, to that I category out of the 4 quadrants, that mind shift has to shift to, okay, it's okay for somebody else to make money in this. This thing doesn't work without that other person making money. One of the biggest things I want when we're loaning money to people, right, Adam? If Conduit Capital is doing a loan to somebody, and if they're not going to make any money, I don't want to loan them money. I don't care if I'm going to get paid back or not. Eventually, they're not going to be incentivized to get me paid back. Eventually, it's not going to work out for them. So I'm looking to invest now, and I think everybody should get to that point where they start thinking, okay, even if I have to make less money, I'm going to put my money over here in this little pot, and I'm going to start letting it grow by itself. I'm going to start
Mm-hmm.
letting other people work this money, and I'm going to find good people and find good networks that I can be a part of, trustworthy people that will help me grow my money. And that's kind of some of the things and that's really the story behind Conduit Capital. That's the story behind our businesses. And hopefully that kind of gives a little bit of insight, Adam, about our businesses, my background, my story, where we came from. Didn't come from silver spoons, came from a very humble beginnings. And the whole purpose of why we have Conduit Capital today now is to help you reach financial freedom, whatever that means for you.
Yeah, no, that's all great stuff, and I love hearing from people about their humble beginnings because oftentimes the lessons learned when you're 12 years old carrying, wheelbarrows of rocks down into a basement. That's really what shapes you moving forward, and those lessons can be applied in so many different ways moving on. And then the main point that I take away from that story is do what you say you're going to do. And I mean, the snowball effect that had on your career, and I mean, you kind of just took it for granted because, well, of course you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Um, but the fact that not many people out there do that really shows how much value you were able to provide to your boss at that time, which then grew into your partner, and that was kind of the foundation for how you got to where you are, which is awesome to see.
Yes, do what you say you're going to do, and you'll be shocked what comes afterwards. Something one of my mentors at one point said to me was, "It's never the deal; it's always the deal after the deal."
Mm-hmm.
So definitely some things to think about there. Thank you for letting me share my story, and maybe you don't have a story. Maybe you're out there and you need your story. Maybe you're trying to get your start. We'd love to help you on that as well from a lending standpoint. But thanks for having me on today, Adam. And that's it, man.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You're exactly right. I always love hearing about your story. And that actually kind of leads us into our new question of the day for this episode, which is what was your first job? Obviously, Tom told us about his, and I have a few good stories about mine that you'll have to tune into the next episode to hear. But also, I want to mention and throw out there that at Conduit Capital, we're constantly looking for new investors to grow our network that we can help achieve their specific and unique goals of financial freedom. So if you have any questions about how our process works or how we could possibly help you, feel free to reach out to me personally at adam@uconduitcapital.com. I know we always have that included at the end of the podcast, but I always want to throw that out right before we sign off just as an additional resource because we are always looking to help and grow our network. So definitely feel free to reach out. And with that, always remember, be a conduit, not a bucket.
Work to have to give. God bless everybody. See you on the next episode.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to stay up to date with all of our latest content, please follow us on social media. You can find us on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at Conduit Capital Podcast. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to send us a message, leave a comment, or share your thoughts with us.